going on, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about a build that I like to call the Shadow Curse Necromancer build. And in this build, you're not going to be using any minions, and there is a lot of AoE as well as survivability for this build. I used it in hardcore, and I've taken my account all the way to 50 using this build by building it up in that direction until I finally got all the different abilities and then upgrading them in the passes along the way. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you all the different abilities and passes that you need to select, kind of talk about why it gives you a little bit more survivability and better clear speed for those early levels while you are playing Diablo, whether you're playing softcore or if you want more hardcore survivability to get to those higher levels and you're trying to push for certain goals. So the first thing that I want to talk about is going to be the skill tree for the Necromancer. Now I'm going to be talking about the Book of the Dead later, but for now this is the direction that you're going to be going with the build. So the first thing that you're going to select is Reap. For the next ones, we're going to be taking the passive, which is going to gain attack speed. We're then going to go down and we're going to grab Blight immediately. So this Blight, it's going to leave behind a defiled area. This is an AoE ability and it is amazing for clears. So we're going to be grabbing that, and then we're also going to have Blight slows enemies, and then we're going to be grabbing you and your minions deal 15% increased damage to enemies with Blight. So what this is going to do is it's going to increase your damage, since we won't be using minions in general versus anyone that is affected with Blight. We're then going to add the Acolyte's Reap. So Reap forms a corpse under the first enemy hit. This is going to be very important for the build. This is going to be your initiator. You're going to go in with a Reap and it's going to drop the first corpse. This is what you're going to need for this build. And I will show you some of the setups later in this video on how the rotation goes. We're then going to go down to our next ability, and we're going to be grabbing Corpse Explosion. So this is going to detonate corpses, dealing 50% damage to the surrounding enemies. We're then going to be grabbing the Bone Prison. So unearth a prison of bones, and it has a surrounding target area for 6 seconds. So this can be used as either a safety or for trapping enemies within. We're then going to be grabbing both of the different passes for it. So if enemies trapped in bone prison, you gain 15 essence plus an additional 5 per enemy trapped. This will just help you get more of your resources back. And then enemies inside the bone prison are either vulnerable, or if you want more survivability for your hardcore character, fortify for 5% base life for each enemy trapped inside the bone prison. And the fortify stat here in Diablo, what it does is anytime your fortification on your health bubble gets above your health, anytime your health drops below that line, you're going to have 10% damage reduction, which means you're going to take less damage. It's meant to help your survivability and keep you alive if you have more fortify on your bar. So the next one we're going to be grabbing is the Enhanced Corpse Explosion, just increasing the radius. So we're going to grab that. And then the next thing we're going to be grabbing is the Decrepify Curse. You're going to want this. Decrepify Curse, it curses the target area. Enemies afflicted by Decrepify are slowed by 40% and they deal 20% less damage. So this is going to be amazing for pulls and for decreasing the damage of everything around you. The next thing we're going to want, and this is very important for the build, is the Blighted Corpse Explosion. So this is going to turn your Corpse Explosion into an AoE skill, dealing 110 shadow damage over 6 seconds on the floor. And this is going to be amazing because you can stack this. You can do many of them on the floor. We're going to go down and we're going to grab the Lucky Hit. So enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify have a chance up to a 10% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. And then when you and your minion hit and afflicted with Decrepify below 10%, they're instantly killed. So whenever you or your minions, obviously it doesn't work on bosses, but this is going to help your clear speed because once they get below 10%, they're just going to die. Okay, from here, we're going to need one more point. So you can put them anywhere you want, whether you want to increase the damage of some of your abilities that you're going to be using. The next thing that we're going to be taking from here is going to be Corpse Tendrils. This is going to be used to pull enemies into the center. So your Reap, the first ability that we got, the Reap, how it forms a corpse under the first enemy hit. We're going to be using this to stun and pull all the enemies in together, and it also doesn't consume the corpse, so you can still use it for your corpse explosion. We're going to be grabbing the first one, which is the enemies who are in range of the tendrils are slowed by 50% before being pulled, and then we're going to be doing Plagued Corpse Tendrils. We have to do this one. Enemies damaged by corpse tendrils are made vulnerable for 3 seconds, which means they're going to take more damage. And this one is beautiful because your whole combo is going to happen within those 3 seconds, and it helps you nuke mobs down. Okay, from here, as a hardcore, we're either going to be trying to increase the damage or our defensive capabilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to increase our damage across the board. So you can drop it on Corpse Explosion, you can drop it on your Blight. We're going to leave this at 1 because all we need for this is going to be the Reap that forms. So you do generate essence per hit, but it's not going to increase. It just does more damage as you increase it. So that one's not going to be as important because all we want it for is going to be the corpse. So we're going to want to increase Bright. We're going to want to increase the Corpse Explosion until we get enough to get down to the next ability, which is going to be all the way down here. We're actually not going to be grabbing Bone Storm, Army of the Undead, or Blood Wave for this build. This is the type of setup you're going to use. So we're not going to put points in that. We're going to max the damage out on these. We're going to want to we're going to max the damage out on Decrepify. And then we're going to max out Corpse Tendrils. so the cooldown is less. Once we get down here, you're going to grab Shadow Blight, and this one is very important as well. You and your minions deal 10% bonus damage to enemies with Shadow Blight. Every 10th time an enemy receives shadow damage from you or a minion while they are afflicted by Shadow Blight, they take an additional 22% shadow damage. So all this is going to do is just increase your damage overall. I'm showing you all this in this order. This is kind of the direction you're going to want to go as you're building your way up to 50 and building all of your abilities. But once you have the Corpse Explosion, you have the Bone Prison, you have Blight, and you have the Curse as well as the Corpse Tendrils, your build is ready to go. You can start doing clears with it pretty easily. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is the passives. So we're going to have more points to use. We still have plenty of points. We're going to be grabbing increasing your maximum essence, and then I grabbed this one 3 times. So your core skills cost 9% more essence, but you deal 15% increased damage. So we did grab that one. We are going to grab consuming a corpse generates 2 essence, and then you deal 3% increased damage for 6 seconds after consuming a corpse. So we poured 3 points into that because we're going to be consuming corpses with corpse explosion and that aura. It's just going to overall increase our damage. Close enemies take 2% more damage and deal 3% less damage to you. 100%, we're going to max this one out. We take less damage and just do more, especially when we're on top and do the pulls together if we're standing next to them. We're going to pour 3 into amplified damage, so we deal 9% increased damage to curse enemies, which is going to be the Decrepify we're using and constantly applying to enemies as we're fighting, because this is going to be decreasing their damage as well as slowing them. But decreasing their damage is really good for survivability, especially when you're playing hardcore. We're going to be coming down to the Reaper's Pursuit. We're going to grab one of these. We're going to grab 1 Gloom, and then we're going to grab 3 of Terror. So your Darkness skill deals 9% bonus damage to enemies who are slowed, which they're going to be slowed from Corpse Tendrils anyways. And you get 9% bonus damage to enemies who are stunned or immobilized, which they become immobilized and stunned when you pull them in. So you're going to want to do this, and the bonus stacks and applies shadow dealt by your minions, but we're not going to be using minions. We're then going to pour the rest into, while you damage enemies with darkness skills, they take 6% increased shadow damage, stacking up to 3 times, again increasing more of your damage. And then darkness skills have a 15% chance to stun enemies. You could pour some into there, but we're still going to have 2 points to use here, so you could use it to upgrade either your tendrils or maybe even pour some into your bone prison to increase the health on that. Now, if we look at my tree here, this is going to be the setup that I have. We have some different armors and stuff, but when you're getting to level 50, your armors don't really matter. You're just trying to upgrade, and you are taking legendaries and taking some extra different types of things that increase your build all around the board. So I might have some that like reduce injury while crowd control effects. I have lucky hits. Chance while not healthy makes a magic bubble. Attacking with a basic skill increases your core damage, which would be my blight. You don't really pay attention to these armors because before 50, you're just trying to get to level 50, because after level 50 is when you start working on your end game. But the next thing I want to show is the Book of the Undead. So we're not going to be using minions, so Book of the Undead needs to be utilized. And what we can do is we can actually give up the right to use minions and increase our shadow damage. So you deal 15% increased shadow damage, but you can no longer raise skeletal warriors. We don't use them anyways, so we're going to increase our shadow damage. We're going to increase our damage 15% against vulnerable enemies, but we can't have skeletal mages anymore, which we don't care about since we're not using them. And then we're going to take your maximum life and is increased by 10%, but we can't summon a golem, which is okay. So this one, increased attack speed, doesn't really matter, and you deal 30% increased critical strike damage, which could be good. You could use this one instead of increased max life, but either or, I just prefer this. I like to increase my life as well as fortify, just because I am playing on a hardcore necromancer. I'm trying to increase my survivability as much as possible and be safe. Also, throughout the leveling process for level 50 and going through the campaign, I did it all on world tier 1. It's the safest method for hardcore. If you're playing softcore, you could go tier 2. I did it on tier 1, was able to do really good clears and decent leveling, as well as another thing that you 100% should grab and look up is all of the Lilith statues. So the Lilith statues give you 2 attribute points or a paragon point. Once you get past level 50, you can use them, but you should be picking up these Lilith statues everywhere you are, because every single one that you get 2 more attribute points that'll go to your either strength, intelligence, willpower, and dexterity. And these are going to be all very important, especially when you get past level 50 for that in-game grind that you're working on. But that's going to be it for the build, guys. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you take this build out and get out there to slaying some demons with your necromancer. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see all of you in the next video.